Greetings and thanks for joining us. My name is Carlos Salinas, and I'm the Regional Director for the U.S. Soybean Export Council in the Americas. This presentation is designed to be a biweekly update, but I apologize. The past 60 days have been relatively busy at the U.S. Soybean Export Council, so we have not had the chance to give you this update. But I think now it's a good time to start. Um, Before I get started, and as we always do, I like to recognize USEX membership. As you well know, within our membership, we have soybean processors, soybean exporters, seed companies, equipment manufacturers, railroads, surveyors, futures exchanges, and so forth. And we never forget the support and contribution that we receive from the U.S. Soybean farmer. Without that support, this presentation would not be possible. We have a brief agenda today. We want to talk about commodity prices and their evolution. We'll talk about interest rates and land values. And then we'll talk about soybean meal and the U.S. Soybean meal exports. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to take a look at different commodities. And I think you've seen the structure in the past where we normalize the prices of many of these commodities at 100%, and we take a look at that price evolution. The purpose of presenting you this relative value is just to understand where soybean meal prices stand and where corn prices stand in relationship to other commodities, which to a great extent are also driven by weather dynamics, climate dynamics, certainly supply and demand. And you can see how drastic some of that volatility can be. And you will also be able to see where corn and soybean meal stand today. So let's take a look. And over here, we can see that the price of cocoa over the past 12 months has gone up by 151%, a significant increase nonetheless. Orange juice up 75%. Feeder cattle up 13%. When we take a look at rice, that's up 10%. When we look at chicken prices, at least according to the values from the World Bank, as of Jan 31st, chicken prices were up 2%. When we take a look at Thai white leg shrimp, that's down 13%. Soybean meal is down 20%. And soft red winter wheat is down 25%. And certainly corn is down 29%. So I just think it's interesting that, we have corn down 29%, soybean meal down 20%. When you compare it to, other finished products, particularly corn versus feeder cattle, you can see that feeder cattle is up and yet corn down 29%. So I imagine that the margins must be improving. And they were already good, but if you're raising cattle, I'm sure those are some pretty good returns. But nonetheless, this gives you an idea of how the prices for corn and soybean meal specifically stand in relationship to other commodities and some of their finished products as well. When we look at vegetable oils, I thought I'd generate a separate page for vegetable oils and look at that evolution over the past 6 months. We've also seen a lot of volatility. And I'll take a look here. When you look at palm oil is down over the past 6 months. I apologize, I have an extra percentage there. When we take a look at crude oil, West Texas Intermediate, that's down 8% over the past 6 months. When we take a look at rapeseed oil, that's down about 12%. That's rapeseed oil in Europe. And rapeseed oil in China is down about 13%. But when we take a look at soybean oil, that's down 26%, right? So soybean oil has done, I think, a very good job pricing itself more competitively in relative terms to search for that demand. And certainly versus these oils that I have listed out here, certainly soybean oil has been the one that showed the biggest drop in prices. Changing subjects and moving a bit more towards land values and interest rates, I was looking at the report, and this is public information from the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. They put their ag letter for February 2024, and I recommend you take a look at that letter. It's got some interesting concepts. I'm pulling out a few snapshots of the letter that drew my attention. One of them was interest rates on farm loans, particularly operating loans. And I take a look at that evolution. You know, they track values all the way to March of 2022, where those operating loans were running at 4.64%, and now in 2023, October, December, we finish with operating loans close to 8.51%, a significant uptick. And you have to keep in mind that our industry is heavily reliant on operating working capital. We do a lot of volume with little margin. And I think this will cause a stress in the system, right? And you can read more details into the report. I just highlighted some comments are here on land values, but also you know, in this particular district, and I'll define the district in a second for you. But this district agricultural credit conditions showed signs of deterioration during the fourth quarter of 2023. So it is pretty clear that the industry, the farmers are struggling with the current environment and are seeing the need for more operating loans and yet more expensive operating loans. Another part that drew my attention was the land values. And this report will give you a good index of what land values have done. And certainly, while they have been increasing at a decreasing rate, land values still increased last year and heading close to their record levels. And I think what's important to keep in mind is that if you're a farmer and you're leasing land to operate, naturally, if the underlying commodity, the land value itself, goes up, you can assume that the price of the leases are also going to go up, which again is another stress in the farm sector, making it more challenging to be profitable with increasing land values, higher interest rates, and in relative terms, probably still expensive inputs. So I think if you're a buyer around the world, I think it's something to keep in mind. I had the privilege of spending the last 2 months talking to farmers in Brazil, talking to farmers in the U.S., and I believe they're experiencing the same. I think as we take a look at the next crops, certainly the technology application, the fertilizer application is going to be reduced, which is likely going to impact yield in the future crops to come. And I think we need to keep in mind what happens with these price levels. And as many of you have said, you know, and many experts have said, the solution to lower prices are lower prices, and lower prices are beginning to take their toll, and they will take their toll certainly on the yields moving forward, and reducing the supply in the form of lower yields due to lesser technological application on many other crops. So we'll see how things evolve over time. Talk about soybean meal demand, this is another example. This report comes from Oil World, and I apologize I did not quote them, but certainly Oil World is forecasting an increase in soybean meal demand of about 5 million metric tons between 22-23 and 23-24. It's a pretty good increase, and likely driven again by the lower price environment, making the inputs and the final products more affordable. I found it interesting that the increase out of those 5 million metric tons, almost 3 million metric tons of that increase came from other countries, not the major ones listed here by Oil World. I'm talking about probably countries like Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, maybe Nicaragua, Colombia, and smaller countries that do not necessarily make it this big list of demand. So again, something interesting to highlight. At the same time, when we take a look at the last report that ended the week of February 22nd, and as reported by the USDA on their export sales, we have shipments to date on soybean meal from the U.S. are up 15%, and certainly when you take a look at outstanding sales, we're up a significant chunk as well. Now, certainly, I think U.S. soybean meal exports have benefited from the absence of Argentina in the export market. Argentina will kick in with a relatively good-sized crop, and we might lose some of this edge in the months to come. But I think to date, these are some record levels, at least on shipments and on outstanding sales at this point in time of the year. At least we've never seen these type of numbers. I hope the information shared was valuable. I look forward to your feedback, and I look forward to trying to keep up my biweekly update in a biweekly form every 2 weeks, time allowing. Thank you very much. Have a great week.